We're in a last stretch here, guys. Today would be hump day. Hey, Mikey. Hey, Mikey. What day is it? I love that commercial. That camel kills me. Whoever came up with that commercial, that was absolutely brilliant. Even if you don't like it, I'm telling you, that was a stroke of genius. So, what can you do to have a stroke of genius that will give a stroke to your enemy? What does a stroke do? It freezes up everything. And the object of all of this is to freeze it up, to lock it down, to do your part. There are passive ways in which you can be a partisan. And I got to tell you, I hear people label themselves all the time, right? And I hate the term conservative. I don't like to say I'm a conservative because it puts me in the same category as Republicans. You get the idea. It puts me in the same category with them. And I am anything but a Republican. They are dirty, conniving, carpet-bagging, mud-slinging, throat-cutting, strangling thieves in high-dollar suits. That's all they are. They don't care about you. They don't care about the country. All they care about is that their party gains power. That's the truth. The Republicans and the Democrats are no different. Their goals are the same. Your enslavement, they win. They don't care what the price is. They don't care if they drag the country into the depths of misery to accomplish it either. So, don't call yourself a conservative because people construe or conflate conservatism with Republican. Call yourself a partisan and see what kind of response you get to that. I've said to people before, don't call yourself a conservative, call yourself a patriot. And the concern from people is that they say, wow, that term is too overused. Okay, call yourself a partisan. When somebody says to you, what's your political belief or your who do you vote for? You say, I don't vote for the Republicans and I don't vote for Democrats. I only vote for and I'm only friends with partisans. Wow. What does that mean? Boom! Door just got slammed wide open, big enough for you to drive a tractor trailer through to explain exactly what you mean. And what exactly is it that you do mean? Well, when you're a partisan, you do anything and everything in your power to drag what? Gulliver to his knees. To drag Goliath down and beat him with a pebble. What does it mean to be a partisan? It means anytime and every time you get an opportunity to, you do damage to the system, all within the boundaries of legality. I'm not suggesting you do anything illegal. FCC, NSA, FBI, ATF, all you guys out there, I'm not condoning any illegal activity. I've given that disclaimer already. I'm not condoning any activity that would be construed as being illegal or immoral or unethical. What I am saying is, you are in a war, and whether or not you admit it, you're a soldier. So that means start soldiering up. And that means doing anything and everything in your power to drag this thing to its knees. Drag it to a halt. You can do it by civil disobedient means. But there's a lot of active ways that you can do it too. Again, you can, and I hate to keep throwing this back there, but you have no idea how valuable it is when you file lawsuits. It's not that you're going to win. It's just that you bury them under a snow mountain of paperwork. Don't you get it? Thousands of lawsuits means thousands of people have to respond. They have to draft a response that says why you're wrong. That's the argument they have to give back to the court. Then the court can dismiss it. But in the meantime, man, somebody's got to sit down and write a 12-page brief. Hello? Thousands of lawsuits. Millions of lawsuits. Don't sign up for Obamacare. It's a passive method, but it drags Obamacare and puts it in its proper place. Bankrupt. Death spiral. And you have two choices. You can either opt for the death spiral for Obamacare now, financial death spiral, or you can wait a little while, and then it will become your death spiral when we have national health care. And it takes you 8 weeks to get to see the doctor. Those are your two options. So it's either death spiral for Obamacare or death spiral for you and your family. I don't know. Let me think about that one. So, let's talk about Obamacare and the subsidy system. It's time for the White House to start sweating over legal challenges to Obamacare subsidies. That's from the Washington Examiner. By the way, they came out yesterday and they extended Obamacare beyond March 31st. And they did it unilaterally and without any kind of legal justification. They just said, we're going to do it because we want to make sure everybody has a chance to sign up. Okay. For the record, I just want to remind you of something. That when they first began this process, HHS, Health and Human Services, and Kathleen Sebelius and the president himself both said, quote, "We have no plan to extend the open enrollment period. In fact, we don't actually have the statutory authority to extend the open enrollment period in 2014. Did you hear what I just said? Let me say it again for the record. We don't actually have the statutory authority to extend the open enrollment period into 014. What does that mean? That means that they do not have the legal authority and the permission or ability to move the date, to extend the deadline. And yesterday they did exactly that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is as good as a public confession on tape. It's like the guy standing there and saying into the camera, "My name is Joe Schmo, and I robbed the bank on 4th and Main on Wednesday, the 6th, and to prove that I was the guy who did it, the clerk named Betty slipped and fell on a banana peel, and I watched because I was there. And that's how you can prove I was really in the bank." Hello? Click, click, you're going to jail. But if we had a Congress, if we had a court system in this country that was worth their salt, both Sebelius and the president himself would both be arrested for treason and lying to the American people. Hello? That's it. Treason. Did you hear what I said? Treason. No, I don't say it too much. You don't say it enough. And that's the problem. That's why this country is falling apart. Because you won't say it enough. So how can we solve the problem? Well, for starters, don't sign up for Obamacare. Secondly, apply for a federal subsidy, if you can, and don't take it when they give it to you. Just make them go through the paperwork motions. Don't take anything, just make them dance on a string. Everything slows it all down. That's the goal. Sabotage by peaceful, civil, legal means. Okay? Like Bugs Bunny said, sabotage. Sabotage the system. Legally, peacefully, don't get into trouble, don't do anything illegal, but sabotage the system any way, every way, and every time you have an opportunity. Do everything in your power to gum up the works. Think of it this way. You have a well-oiled machine. A well-oiled machine runs like a sewing machine. Bzzz. So what do? Well, you take a little sugar and honey and you pour it in those cogs. And it goes from zzz. For the radio, that was probably interesting sound effects. For those of you that are watching on video, it's probably not so interesting, but it just dawned on me what that must have sounded like on radio. So here's the point. Your job is to do anything and everything in your power to muck up the works. File for Obamacare, create an account, slow this thing down, just surf all day long if you can. Just click around. Do it. Look, everything is an opportunity to put the hurt on these people. They're your enemy. And, you know, you got to recognize it for what it is and who they are. You know, Sun Tzu told us in The Art of War, know your enemy. You cannot possibly fight an enemy that you don't know. Most Americans are still having a hard time saying, that is my enemy. I can now openly state that my federal government, my state government, my county government, my city government, my local police department, my local county sheriff's department are acting like my enemy. And therefore, I have to assume the task and the position that they are. Do you have a constitutional sheriff? Great. Then you can take him off the enemies list. Do you have a constitutional chief of police? Then you can take him off the list or her off the list. Do you have a group of individuals in your city council that are constitutionally minded? Do you have school board members that are constitutionally minded? How about your county commissioners? Any that are, keep them on the list. Any that aren't, remove them quickly. But you better be able to separate the wheat from the chaff and do it on a fairly short order. How do you find out? Well, you can ask them some straight-out questions, but not, what do you think of the Second Amendment? Because for crimini's sake, even Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi will profess belief in the Second Amendment. Ask them why the Second Amendment is important. And ask them, did you know that this was meant for you? See how they respond to that. Ask them, what's the purpose of government? What is the purpose of government? If they cannot come back with this short, brief answer, government exists to protect the rights of the minority from the whims of the majority. And government exists to protect your right to life, liberty, property ownership, and the pursuit of happiness. If they cannot give you that answer in 2 sentences, then you don't vote for them. And you actively work to remove them. Recall, whatever it takes. Frighten them out of office. Make them resign. Got some dirt on them? Make them resign. Well, that person was a friend of mine. You know, I grew up with Bob all my life. You know, I mean, Bob's an okay guy. If Bob's a traitor, Bob's a traitor. If Sally, who, you know, you've been friendly with for many years, and you actually voted for her, but, you know, she seems to kind of have changed. But if Sally's a traitor, Sally's a traitor. If it gets down to the point where it comes down to Sally saying, fingering you or your family because you're not playing the game the way you're told, what are you going to say then? Sally, I thought you were my friend. Don't wait for that. Remove Sally from the equation so that she's not in a position to do that. Substitute people in there who are constitutional. Get these people to sign the pact. What is the pact? Political Accountability Contract and Trust. It states that if I violate my obligations, I've got an accountability group behind me, and if I violate 3 or 4 bullet points that I've pledged that I will do as a representative, in other words, not a refusal to vote for anything that does not have constitutional justification, that all my pre-signed and pre-executed letter of resignation is in there, in the folder. And all that my accountability partners have to do is vote for a majority and then submit it. And give me 48 hours to call the press and notify them that I've resigned. That's it. I've had so many people, I've had a lot of people who said, great idea. I've had a lot of people who said, that'll never work. Well, you know what? I have not heard one single person who said to me, that'll never work, who came up with another idea. I rest my case. The naysayers will be the first one to throw you and your ideas under the bus. But do they have any of their own? No. So those are the same people that say, well, listen, you just got to sit here and take it for a little while. Like that inhumane monster of a woman the other day talking about the guy whose 5-year-old was put in foster care because his wife's grandfather got busted selling weed 10 miles from their house. Well, you should just suck it up. Just suck it up! This is our country we're talking about here. I ain't sucking up nothing. Fight anywhere and everywhere. Here's one. The legal challenges to the Obamacare subsidies. It says right in the law that the only subsidies that can be issued are exchanges established, can be given through exchanges established by the state. That's what the law says. In other words, if you're going to get a subsidy, it has to be through an exchange established by the state. Well, there is only 14 states that have exchanges. So if you don't live in one of those 14 and you got a subsidy, it's illegal. Not that you did anything wrong. The government has broken the law. And they're stealing and using taxpayer money to accomplish the task. Now, there are cases right here. There's an appeals case. There's an appeals court called Halbig versus Sibelius. And it's one of several that is challenging the IRS ruling. If any of these cases succeeds, I got to tell you, dozens of state governments and the federal government are going to have an enormous amount of explaining to do because they're giving out subsidies to every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's willing to put their name on the line. In fact, if you recall, they said, we're not even going to verify that the information you give us is accurate. We're just going to trust you and use the honor system. So if you say you made $30,000 last year, even though you made $82,000, we're not going to check. How much is that going to cost the taxpayer? How can you muck up the works by using the Obamacare system? You can get on there and create account after account after account after account after account after account after account. Create them all. Go in there and surf around like 100 different people. Is there anything illegal about that? No. They may say, you're using the same IP address. You could say, well, it's kind of an internet cafe. I let all my neighbors use my Wi-Fi. See, your job is to figure out how can you slow down the monster. And it doesn't have to be a brick wall. But, think about it this way. When you're trying to stop the forward motion, there's a lot of ways you can stop forward motion of a monster. You can put up a brick wall. That's one way. Another way that you could do it would be to simply pour some oil on the ground. Zoop, pang. Another way that you could do it would be to put a lot of marbles on the floor. Another way to do it would be to throw a whole bunch of nails and tacks down on the floor. Will it stop him? No. But it will certainly slow him down. The object, and quite frankly, enough tacks on the floor could stop him. Your job is to be a partisan. And what do partisans do? Partisans fight. Do you have to fight illegally? No. Am I recommending that you do? No. But partisans fight. Fighting is legal. Your job is to fight. Every time, everywhere, anywhere against any entity that you perceive to be the wrong entity for America. And I trust your judgment, or you wouldn't be listening to this program. I trust your judgment. Go after them, all of them. Go after the post office. You think a $5 billion loss is big? Make it a $12 billion loss. Listen, why would I want to do that? It's only going to add to our national debt. Are you kidding me? Our national debt is so unbelievably high right now. If I said to you that, that's the equivalent of me saying to you, listen, you got a $5 million mortgage. What are you going to do with that? That's like $50,000, $70,000 a month. How are you going to pay that? You're not. That's the point. I mean, it is no different, folks. It is no different. This debt they're building up is designed to be eviscerated and eliminated at some point in time. And they're going to do it by a number of different methods. But, I mean, if you listen to that discussion I had with Jack Spirko last week, he said that they're going to do it by a revaluation of currency. I don't care how they do it. It doesn't matter. The point is, we're never going to pay it off, and they know it, which is why they don't even bother to hide the fact that they're giving Obama blank checks anymore. Even the conservatives. They know it's not going to ever get paid off. They know that there's going to be an economic collapse. They know. Did you hear what I just said? They know. In fact, they're not only knowledgeable about it, they're actively engaged in creating it. So therefore, what does it matter whether the post office loses $5 billion or $9 billion? What does it matter if the Department of Justice or the EPA has to go out and hire a bunch of new lawyers to fill out all of these briefs that have to be responded to from lawsuits from the civilian population of the planet? Go after them all. Your state is probably not in much better shape than the federal government. And, yes, you are probably more closely aligned to your state financially and fiscally than you are to the federal government. But I got to tell you, folks, government only lives because you feed it. And if you want to stop feeding it, then do everything you can to not only stop feeding it, but to steal the food away from it that it needs to thrive and survive. It's not enough for you to stop them from hunting. You have to steal their stored food, too, and let them starve to death. And then clip his toenails so that the monster can't go out and hunt. Aren't you getting this yet? Anything and everything that you can do that will slow it down, drag it to its knees, put it off. That's the game. You're a partisan. Do what partisans do. All right. You've been listening to America's Voice now. We're going to wrap for the day. I want you to seriously contemplate it. And I would like you to take the time to sit and write down some areas that you think you could be effective. And then don't just sit around and dream about it. Act. Act on it. All right. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.